Good morning and welcome to your Farm and Home Show. I'm Kristi Shive, and today we're visiting with Kate Thompson. She's Family and Consumer Sciences Agent in Campbell County. Today we are talking about overcoming the stigma of mental health. Kate, what is stigma?
So, stigma in regards to mental health is just any negative thoughts or beliefs about someone who has mental illness. And it can be labeling people. So, in our society, this stigma often comes from the media and movies and things that play out. And so, a lot of times people will say, oh, that person's crazy if they have a mental illness, or they're dangerous because they have a mental illness. So this stigma that's not true about mental illness kind of gives people this belief, this negative belief, and it can really negatively impact the people who are suffering from mental illness. They might not get help. They might be afraid to talk to their friends about it, so they're suffering in silence more. So there are lots of ways to deal with stigma. The first one is to get help. So if you are someone who is suffering from mental illness, don't be afraid to get treatment. Okay. And if you feel comfortable, share with other people, because you sharing that you are going to get treatment helps take away that stigma and gets it out in the open. Give people facts about mental illness. So in the United States, half of the population will have a type of mental illness in their lifetime. So about half. So it shouldn't be this hush hush, scary topic if half of the population is going to have some mental illness over their lifetime. And also, we talked about stigma, in our society, like specifically with schizophrenia. That's one that has a very negative stereotype, and less than 1% of the population in the United States has schizophrenia. So it's a very, very small percent. And someone who has schizophrenia is more likely to harm themselves or be harmed by somebody else than to harm someone else. But in our society, the stigma is that people who have schizophrenia harm others, and that's just not the case. So,
Kate, I really like that you mentioned that it's important to be open about it. Because if I'm struggling with something and then you share that you're also struggling with it, then we can confide in each other and we don't feel so alone. And maybe we can share resources.
yeah, absolutely. And society is changing. I think the pandemic really opened up our eyes to mental health, and so it's becoming more talked about, and the awareness and the education about it is getting more widespread, which is really important, because then you can, erase some of those negative stereotypes. One thing that a lot of times we make this mistake of saying, which adds to the negative stigma, is if you say they're bipolar or they're schizophrenic, versus that person has a bipolar disorder or that person has schizophrenia. So not labeling yourself as a schizophrenic or, as bipolar, like that's not who you are. That's something that you have. Or I'm someone who has depression, is also changing the language that we
Mhm.
use. And joining like a support group is really important. Finding people, if you are struggling with mental illness, finding people, like you were saying, that you can share with and talk to. Don't be afraid to reach out, to seek professional help. A lot of times people, that is a huge step. Uh, for anxiety, I know people who have anxiety usually don't seek professional help for around 10 years.
Mm,
So just
okay.
knowing that too, that statistic, that it's so important to reach out. And the more we give the facts about mental health and how, again, about half of the population will have a mental health illness, the more likely people are going to go and seek help from a counselor or a therapist or a social worker or psychiatrist. There's lots of different people to reach out to get help.
Definitely. Don't be afraid to get help. If there's ever anything your local extension office can do, we can always point you in the direction of where to go. Thank you for joining us today on the Farm and Home Show, and we'll see you next time.